Can we have the roll call, please, Ms. Middleton?
Chairperson Chauncey.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Tuggle.
Here.
Commission Member Cornelius.
Here.
Commission Member Howell. Commission Member Miller.
The first thing we're going to do is the approval of the minutes for our October 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve of the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion to approve the minutes by Commissioner Tuggle and a second by Mr. Miller. Any discussion? I see none. Have the roll call, please.
Vice Chairperson Tuggle.
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius.
Yes.
Commission Member Miller.
Yes.
Chairperson Chauncey.
I'm going to abstain because I was not here. Thank you, Commissioner Tuggle, by the way, for filling in for me. We have no old business to discuss, so we'll get down to new business. It's item A, going to be a request of Ethan Collier Construction to rezone unaddressed parcel in the 6,000 block of Grayston Avenue, tax map 169C-C00102, from R1 Residential District to R3 Residential Apartment District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you said, this is a request from Ethan Collier Construction to rezone from R1 to R3 on the 6,000 block of Graston Avenue. There's approximately 3 buildings with approximately 95 units that will go into this development that they're building. There are 2 entrances that would be able to go in. One would be on Graston, the other would be on John Arnold. And I'm going to read real quick the staff report that we got from RPA. Compatibility with adjacent land uses. The site's surrounded by a single-family residential, commercial uses, a church, and a hospital. The R3 district is compatible with the mix of uses in the area. Compatibility with the development form. The development form is a mix of 1 to 2-story single-family residential on small lots with front-loaded parking, a large medical complex with associated parking, a church with a parking lot, and other various commercial developments. Concerns regarding location, lighting, or height. The R3 district would not introduce any other nuisance concerns related to location, lighting, or height.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Is the applicant here? Okay. If you'll come up to the microphone, please. I'm going to give the applicant a few minutes to introduce his case, and then if there's any opposition here, I'll allow opposition to come down after that. So if you'll please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm Ethan Collier, and my address is 400 Harper Street, Chattanooga, Tennessee. I would like, if possible, to introduce our engineers who've been working with us on this project to just kind of walk us through what it is exactly we're hoping to do. Is that all right?
Okay, yeah, sure,
Our engineers.
absolutely.
I didn't catch that address.
400 Harper Street.
Harper.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Farley. I'm with AD Engineering in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're at Market Street.
If you'll talk a little closer to the microphone, we can't hear you, please.
Pull it down. There you go.
This is a 4.4 acre parcel on Graston Avenue. Right now it's a wooded site. It's between the hospital, some single family detached, a church, and some commercial development. We are proposing 95 units. We are in the WWTA moratorium, which we have filed paperwork for. We're also in the 100-year flood, and we've also filed paperwork for that too. And whatever else you guys need to know. This is in this area, there's a bunch of mixed use. I think apartments would fit really well in here, between the hospital and the medical buildings that are around and some of the other uses. I think this would fit very well in this area.
Okay.
Are you doing a Loma? Is that what you meant for the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We know we'll have to fill the site.
Right.
So we'll have to get certifications for all of that and don't have an issue doing that at all.
Right. I'm sorry.
You got a question? Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm very familiar with that site. Part of that site is underwater, portions of it. So you're going to be building that site up quite high. Where's the water retention going to go? Because that area over there is just flat as a board.
It will likely be underground. We'll have underground detention.
Underground detention, that's an awful lot of underground to build, because with 95 units going on 4 acres.
Yes, sir.
Any questions over here? I do have some questions. In the application, I see that you have filed for a reservation application for the WWTA. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So, and I'm kind of new to this, and I was just trying to figure out what that entails. So I did a little bit of homework here, and I wish I'd had more time to do a little bit more homework. But now this is located down in a they call it a basin, right? In this location, and from what I understand is that there are so many credits that are allowed to be applied to your particular application. There's only so many credits to go around. And where are you with that application process by WWTA? Because I'm concerned that I don't really know how many credits I didn't really know we had a moratorium in East Ridge, a building moratorium until, okay, and I'd rely on your institutional knowledge too.
After I left.
Yeah, and I don't really know how many credits we have. I don't know how many credits you're going to use, and I don't even know if there's something more essential that we need to use these credits on. So, if you could kind of tell me your opinion on that, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I will tell you what I understand to be the case, that there were 84 credits. I want to say it was 84 that, sorry? 88 credits that had been set aside for this piece of property for its development as multifamily. And so WWTA knew that this project was coming, and they knew that this property would likely be rezoned for multifamily, and they reserved those 88 credits for this project and this property. So now we've gone through the process of actually locking down those credits for this development. I don't know, are there more credits that are set aside for more properties around, or I don't know that. I only really know the specifics in regards to this piece of property.
I know what I was told, that it would probably tie up not all of the credits, but maybe a big portion of them. But there's a process that you go through to apply for more credits. It's not an easy process, but you don't know if you're going to get them or not. Again, I don't expect you to know the answer to that, and I don't either. But, so yeah, that's really the only questions I have. Anything else before I open a public hearing?
I was just curious if staff has recommendation. I didn't catch that. Staff has no opinion? Or
Staff had no
does not have a
recommendation. Okay. Okay, Mr. Collar, I appreciate it. Y'all can have a seat. I'm going to allow opposition to come up. Is there any opposition here in the room? Just one? Okay. Sir, if you want to come down to the microphone, if you'll state your name and address for the record, I'll give you about 3 minutes, more or less.
Okay, I'm Reverend Betty Mills. My address is 1212 Laurelwood Drive, East Ridge, and I pastor the church that they're talking about. And my opposition is more concerned what this gentleman here mentioned. I've pastored that church for 22 and a half years. And in that period of time, on 2 different occasions, we've had spillover from that property that went up to 75 yards on our church parking lot. At the same time, and there's no one here from the hospital, I don't think, but they're very concerned too, because whenever our parking lot floods, their employee parking lot floods. So I'm very concerned about that, as is everybody in our church, unless there's some kind of assurance that there's not going to be spillover. As a matter of fact, I met someone in this particular enterprise, and I mentioned this to them, and they said, well, we're looking into that, and we're making arrangements for that. But I'd like to know that we're taken care of. We've been there for a long time, 46 years, and some of the leading citizens in the city are members of our church, and I think we need a voice in this and some assurance that we're not going to have to worry about having our parking lot destroyed. We spent $60,000 there, and that's a pretty good price. So again, I am very concerned about having some kind of assurance that will be legally binding, that they must do something that cannot result in the spillover coming over on our property. And of course, again, I can't speak for the hospital, but I've spoken to some of them today. Their leadership is out of town in a conference of some sort, but they're very concerned. And actually, the spillover is worse in the employee parking lot than it is in our church. It comes up to 75 yards in our parking lot. But when it happens, every time it's happened in our church parking lot, it's happened in the hospital employees' parking lot, going up with over the engine of their employees' cars and up to the top of the doors. So this is a very significant issue, and I appreciate this gentleman here for mentioning that.
Hey, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Come on down, ma'am. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Connie Cowan, and it's 6012 Graston Avenue. I'm right across from the woods. And right before we started this meeting, I was kidding with the young man back here. It was so nice. I said, don't be sweeping that water over in my yard now, because I know it's flooded over there. So that is one of my concerns too. It's just, where is the water going to go? Because I have a big house there, and I've lived there for a long time. I was raised on that street. So, and the preacher, I do know what he's talking about, that the water comes up, and then the East Ridge parking lot, where the employees park, it's more down a small hole, and they have to make their employees get out of there when it backs up. But, you know, as long as they can handle that and everything, that's okay with me.
You remember the last time that flooded? Was it December of 2015?
13, I think.
15, we had a flood
It might have been
that put
15.
Camp Jordan all underwater except for the
Yeah.
arena.
She lived down there in Jordan. Yeah,
13 or 15, yeah.
Yeah.
I seen pictures of it. I wasn't here at that time, but I saw
Yeah.
pictures of all that.
but I had my house built there on that street, and I lived next door where my mom and dad did, so I kind of know about the water and stuff. But I was asking him before. He was really nice. He came by my house the other day, and you know, I asked him. I said, it's going to be apartments or houses or whatever. And at that time, he said he didn't know, that they're still debating about a lot of this stuff. But she just said apartments.
Yes, they're going to be apartments.
They have to
Anything
have-
else?
They have to have a certified engineering study done
Okay.
and approved by not just us, but by another agency. I'm sure whether the Army Corps of Engineers is involved in this or not, I'm not sure.
Right.
But they do have to have professional engineers sign off on a whole drainage plan for that whole 4.4 acres
Okay.
before permits are issued,
'Cause I
building
did-
permits are issued.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I did ask him when he come by the other day. We was just talking, and there's the house right cauterized from mine, because I own 2 lots. I said, you see how that house is built? I said, they had to build a full basement and then build on top of it. It's a single level on top, but a full basement on the bottom. But because of the flood stage, they could not build low on the ground. And he said, no, we're not gonna build that way. We're gonna fill it up.
Yeah, they're gonna raise the buildings and then build underground detention.
Right.
It's been done. I've seen a lot of developments do that before.
Yeah, because that's what I was asking him. He said, no, they're just gonna fill it. So,
Raise the buildings
yeah.
and underground detention.
Yeah, what he means by build on fill is they're gonna put enough dirt in that it raises the building above the floodplain.
Right.
But underneath all that fill, they'll have a giant concrete
Right, that's what I was
retention
trying to
system.
listen to her say.
Which I recognize those two because you guys did the one for Southern Honda, so hello again. I can tell you it is both effective and very expensive, and it did work. If you know Southern Honda's parking lot doesn't flood, we have their system underneath that parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just all kind of in the area concerned about the water.
Yeah. Sure, no, absolutely.
Okay, is anything else?
He was asking me, we had talked to him, and he said that, because I've got a very nice house on that street, a pool in the back and everything. And I said, is it going to be low income, high income, or whatever? He said, they're going to be nice apartments or houses, because at that time he said he didn't know.
Okay. Yeah, whatever questions you have, you can ask them, but I'm going to use your time here to ask the questions, and I'll give him an opportunity to come back up to the microphone to answer any questions you have after we're finished.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay, is that it? Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, come on down, sir. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Samir Sinanagic. Address is 8603 Clarewood Road. I do own property in the next street, and I'm also contractor building houses. I did hear this about WWTA. I just finished the one house. They give me a hard time to pull the permit to connect the residential house. Now I have 2 more properties there. I just want to make sure that credits will not be used, and they're going to turn around and told me I cannot build on my existing property 2 residential houses. And second question will be, we're talking about 10-foot flood zone. Basically, what my understanding, they're going to build a dirt 10-foot, then start building the apartments, or I'm not sure how they're going to do it.
Okay.
It's about 10 foot below flood.
Again, I'll have Mr. Collier, the applicant, come back up and answer any questions that you have whenever you're finished. So if you had a question exactly how they were going to do it, if you'll talk a little bit louder in the microphone, I don't know if you heard
So
me.
yeah, I just want to know exactly what, I mean, I have to fill the dirt, because every houses around now that's built, it's built with cross base, basement, something, because it's like up 6, 7, 10 foot below. The living space is above. And basically, if they're going to fill it up to dirt 10 foot, how the rest of the house is going to look around. I mean, it's just going to be apartment be on top of the hill. Everything else, and I lived there for a long time. We got a several flood, and the water's got to go somewhere, you know. I'm just concerned about that, that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
I didn't catch his name.
Sir, can you come back? She didn't catch your name, I'm sorry.
It's spelled S-A-M-I-R, and last name it's S-I-N-A-N-A-G-I-C. 8603 Clearwood Road, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Wood.
Yes, one word.
Thank you.
All right, thank you again, sir. Is there anyone else? I see no one. Mr. Collier, the applicant, would you like to come back up, maybe try to answer some of these questions you heard, give you a chance for rebuttal?
Yeah, I will cover as much of this as I can. First, in regards to the WWTA credits, I don't know how WWTA issues credits to neighbors and other pieces of property. I do know that those credits are issued on a first-come, first-served basis. We've applied for those credits. They have not yet given us those credits, so we don't know where all that's going to fall out. I will say that a sewer moratorium and sewer credits and not credits and all those sorts of things are not permanent. Those are temporary issues that the city's dealing with, and WWTA is dealing with. The zoning's permanent, and so we want to move forward with the zoning even if we didn't have WWTA credits. We would know that might be something that could get resolved further down the road. So in regards to the concerns that the one neighbor had about the WWTA credits, the pastor had mentioned to us in person in regards to the spillover, and we're going to rely very heavily on our engineers to make sure that doesn't happen. We're going to be required under state and city regulations that we capture and retain the rainwater that hits the site. Currently on the site, water hits the site and it runs off site. When we're done doing the development, we have to capture all the rainwater off the gutters and in the parking lots and hold that on site for some period of time and release it slowly over a period of time. And so I do think it's possible that the work we're doing, when it's all said and done, actually reduces runoff. It certainly will not increase that runoff or that spillover that the pastor had mentioned. In regards to it being a floodplain and us building inside the floodplain, it's very much like you described. We've done a environmental assessment study to look and see if there's any wetlands or anything like that there, and there aren't in the areas that we're going to be working. And so we'll clear the site, we'll bring in dirt, we'll raise it above the floodplain so that the entire site is above the floodplain. What that means is that currently there are streams and ditches and waterways that they fill up with water and they back up into that area. So flooding is caused by 2 different things. One reason we have flooding on site is that it's in the path of travel of the water. And so water's running from uphill to downhill, and you're somewhere in that path. And so during heavy rain events, those areas can fill up with water, and that can cause temporary flooding. Areas like we have in East Ridge have fairly significant flooding that's caused from waterways backing up into low-lying areas. We're going to raise our area out of that floodplain. When we do, it doesn't increase the water that's flooding on the other properties. It doesn't have impacts on adjacent properties. All it means is that water doesn't flood into our area. It doesn't mean that more water floods onto our neighbors' properties. I was describing to somebody earlier that a lot of times when people think about flooding, they think of it in terms of their kitchen sink. And there's a certain water level, and then they put several things in the kitchen sink, and the water comes up. And they think that we're going to raise our site, and by doing so, we're going to raise the water level in the kitchen sink. Well, the reality is that the world is not a kitchen sink. It doesn't have hard edges. It's more like an infinity pool. And so if you had an infinity pool and you dropped a car into it, the level of the infinity pool would not rise. It would just run off the side. That's the way this floodplain is, because it's water backing up into this area that no longer can back up into that area. So we're confident that the work that we're doing there is not going to increase flooding. There's not going to be spillover. And the WTA credit thing, it'll work itself out. Either we'll get the credits or we won't get the credits. I think we will, and we'll be able to move forward with our project. But if for whatever reason we're not able to get the sewer credits, then we'll have to work that out with WWTA over a period of time.
If you were to receive half of the credits, will you start the construction and do one building or two buildings, or do you need all 95 credits before you build the whole site at one time?
I think it's probably the case. I don't know exactly. We might change our plan pretty significantly. The challenge with these sites is that sites that are in the floodplain have to be taken out of the floodplain. Well, that's a super expensive effort. This is really, it's a great location for multifamily. It's right next to the hospital. We've met with the hospital. They're fully supportive of it. But to actually build it in a floodplain is exponentially more expensive than building elsewhere. And if we could find land to build apartments on outside the floodplain, we'd certainly love that. If we're only able to get half the credits, I don't know what we would do. Because there's a lot of cost, and the upfront cost, just bringing that dirt in, raising it up.
Well, your site development costs.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to offset that if you only
Right.
build half the development. I understand.
We're taking a piece of land that's currently,
Right.
while it's pretty to look at, is relatively worthless, and turning it into a valuable piece of real estate. Yes, sir.
You have an idea of what your rents are going to be monthly for the apartments yet?
I don't. That's so much market driven. But I did hear the question in regards to whether or not they were going to be low income or high income. That's a hard question to answer because, who really knows what low income is and what high income is. But I will say that we're not doing any low income tax credits. There's no federal funds or state or local funds going into it. And so, a lot of times when people are thinking low income, they're thinking about low income tax credit apartment complexes where they're taking vouchers and those sorts of things. We're not planning on any tax abatement of any kind for our project.
I guess, I'm sure you have an idea of what the project's going to cost.
Yes.
And based on that, do you even have a ballpark of where you're going to have to be rent-wise to make it worth building?
Will be as much as possible, but generally what we're seeing is somewhere around $1.50 a foot. So if we have, when I say as much as possible, we are a developer. So if we can get $1.80, we'll get $1.80. If I can get $4, we'll get $4, right? We'll charge $4,000 a month. We're going to build some really nice apartments. I don't know if you're familiar with the work that my company does, but we do build a really good product. And so I would imagine those rents, I don't want to be quoted on it. And, sometimes the papers at these sorts of things, but they're going to be around that $1.50 to $60 a foot price point. Thank you.
I move approval.
Second. No, I mean, I think it's going to take a pretty significant project to ever develop anything on a site that low. And I know from my experience with these guys that not only does it work, it's also really expensive. So I'm sensitive to what he's saying. He has to build a nice apartment complex there for it to ever pay off. And so I think if we're ever going to build anything in that spot, it needs to be a high-end development. I think that's what it's going to take to make this work. So I don't think, from my own experience, and obviously if a mile down in East Ridge, not the same neighborhood, but with the same elevation, it did work. And it was certainly, I think it helped our neighbors, but it does take a big development. And I know that's scary when it's your neighbor, but we did it, and I think it helped, and it's the same engineers. So I feel confident they can help their neighbors.
Yeah, and I'll say, I mean, he met all of his setback requirements, all of his square footage requirements for each unit, all of the parking requirements for that site, 200,000 square feet. We'll do the math. I mean, he met all those requirements, not asking for any kind of variances on that. And it's the whole area is mixed use, commercial apartments. It's really hard to push back on it. But yeah, anything else? Can I have roll call, please?
Vice Chairperson Tuggle,
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Yes.
Commission Member Miller,
Yes.
Chairperson Chauncey.
Yes. Okay, that motion did pass. It will go before East Ridge City Council for final approval, probably maybe in December. I'm not sure, but just get with staff and they'll let you know about that. Okay. Thank you, everybody. The next item on our agenda is going to be item B, request of Evan Green EPG Homes LLC to rezone the properties located at 664, 678, and 692 Layfield Road, tax maps 170JB00402, 00403, and 00406 from R1 Residential District to R3 Residential Apartment District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't repeat half of what you just said, since you've already said it.
Yep.
About the addresses and all those sort of things. The total acreage here is a little under an acre, 0.91 acres. They're planning on developing this and building this using what's called the horizontal property regime, where basically the buildings, the structures are owned, but the land and the grass and everything else, the roads are all part of a common, and I'll let them talk about it here in a second. It's all part of a common use. That'd be done by the homeowners association or things of that nature. And I'll let Mr. Green and Mr. Custer talk about that. The staff recommendations from RPA, the comments I should say that they have, the compatibility with the adjacent land uses. The site is surrounded by a mix of single-family residential, multifamily residential, and townhouse units. The proposed R3 district is compatible with the existing multifamily residential and townhouse development. The surrounding development form is a mix of 1 to 2 story single-family residential on lots ranging from 0.15 to half acre multi-story apartments with associated parking and townhomes with front-loaded park. The R3 district would not introduce any nuisance concerns related to location, lighting, or height. A landscape buffer around the parking area may be needed to be considered to reduce any potential nuisances to neighboring sites. And I believe they're anticipating the construction of anywhere from 6 to 10 units. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Custer.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
If the applicant will state his name and address for the record, please.
I'll be representing Mr. Green, Kenny Custer, Ace Engineering, 714 Cherry Street. Mr. Chairman, Commission, we're before you today, as Mr. Dorsey stated, request to rezone those parcels from R1 to R3. The difference of what we're looking at is your typical R3 zone, multifamily. We are more than willing to go ahead and actually let you condition zone that to say no apartments, because that's not our plan. Our plan is 100% to do townhomes on this property. The reason being is if you guys are familiar with the Atomic Ridge development that happened not too long ago up on the ridge that we worked on several years ago, it's proven very successful. Our zoning code, as we all know, is just a touch outdated, and we need to be able to update it to incorporate, the current state laws with HPR. And I know y'all have some other items on the agenda tonight that's doing just that. What allows us to actually kind of maintain the neighborhood feel by doing this horizontal property regime, which creates a private drive, so you don't have everything sitting up on the road, or multiple ingress and egress points where you have to do one on Layfield, one on Frawley, one somewhere else. This just keeps a private drive off of Layfield. It puts us back up into the development itself to where all that is green space or shared space that will be ran and managed by an HOA. So even though this is early on and preliminary, we feel like this is a very viable project. The developer, Mr. Green, has built over 67 homes here in the city of East Ridge, bought his first home here at 19 years old. He's obviously committed to building quality developments and doing things out here the correct way. Also, another route we could have went was the traditional RT1 zone, but if you go RT1, it actually allows for more density. So we thought if we went with R3, put a condition on it, shrink the density a little bit, use the HPR, gets creative within the zoning code, but still allows us to be able to create a quality project with more of an open land concept.
Thank you, sir. Anybody got any questions for Mr. Custer?
Yeah,
I see.
just a kind of a comment, 6 to 10, how large are these townhouses going to be? What kind of square footage are you talking about?
So
1 story, 2 story, or?
multi-story, master on main, going to be a combination of 3 bedrooms, but we're not going to do garages. We're going to save on garages, save on a few other things. That way that cost doesn't get passed on to the consumer. We're really hoping for a price point of around the $250 mark. And that's quality, not necessarily entry level, but that's getting younger quality families in here that's going to set up roots and be here for a long time. That's kind of what we're looking at. Square footage could vary a little bit. The way with R3, the way that actually works is you have to have 1 lot or parcel that's a minimum of 10,000 square feet, and then 2,000 square foot for each additional unit. So, the 8 to 10, 12, we don't really want to put a cap because we don't know exactly where that's, how our detention's going to go and how that's going to run. We still got a lot of engineering, some due diligence work, but if we can get through this first part of the rezoning, then that'll really allow us to elaborate on what this development can actually be.
I like the concept. I think a lot more is needed in the city of this type of concept, development townhouses.
I agree, and utilizing this, if you look at the layout of this property,
It lends itself to a private development.
It does.
Off the beaten path.
It does.
Which is nice.
yeah, and you don't take away from that residential feel by just shoving it right up on the road. So,
Thank you, Mr. Custer.
thank you all.
Yeah. Okay, is there any opposition present in regards to this rezoning? Any opposition? I see none. Okay, I see no reason to bring the applicant back down for rebuttal. We have no opposition. Do I entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve?
Second,
Okay,
or did Mr. Tuggles second?
The squeak was to see if we wanted to make a restriction about actual apartments, so.
you want to make a
but-
motion to amend?
Okay, I understand what
Yeah,
you're saying.
I'd like to make a motion to approve for R3 zoning with the restriction that there only be 1 family unit per, I guess, vertical plat, right? Apartments are when there's multiple going up, and townhomes are when there's multiple going.
Well,
So how do you restrict
can have
it?
2-story townhouses.
Yeah, they have a retention pond on this. I know we didn't bring all that up, but we have their plan on that.
Right.
Right. I'm not sure how we phrase that where it's legal, though. You were a former city
I
manager. Can
know,
you help
but
me with that?
but
I'm gonna
the
have
laws have changed
Mr.
a
Engineer
lot in
come
that
back
area.
down here.
Yeah, we'll ask the engineering guy,
So,
Mr. Custer.
so basically, the condition would be that, conditioned that the units be built according to a horizontal property regime with a townhome condo, you can use townhome/condo, but not traditional apartments. And obviously, this is going to go to city council, so once City Attorney Litchford gets a hold of it, we may have to maneuver some of that around in the final language, but that's fine also. We can work on that. We know that sometimes in that R3 zone, we get focused on what the product could be, and we don't want people to focus on that. We want to focus on what we want to accomplish and not get stuck in that stigma.
Okay, so hang tight right there.
Horizontal building regime. That's
Right.
it, yeah.
You want to clarify your amended motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to approve with the horizontal building regime restriction to approve townhomes and condos, but not traditional apartments.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Got a motion by Commissioner Tuggle and a second by Mr. Cornelius. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Vice Chairperson Tuggle,
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Yes.
Commission Member Miller,
Yes,
Chairperson Chauncey.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Motion
Commission,
passed.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item C, discuss a resolution to reflect the adoption of state law, Public Chapter 994, that planning commissions can no longer require property owners to dedicate additional land along existing roads for increasing the rights of way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you said, the whole purpose of this resolution is to codify or put into our subdivision regulations what the Tennessee General Assembly adopted back in April that took effect in July, which basically states that a developer does not have to give up or pay us money or whatever for additional right-of-way for their property. In a nutshell.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions?
I mean, there's not really a matter of discussion. It's state law, right? So we
Right.
just adopt state law and
Yeah.
continue.
Correct.
Is this some,
And
Mr.
the, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Did you want us to vote on this, or we're just discussing this for,
Well, it says discussion, but I would assume you all are going to need to vote on this.
okay?
We would need to adopt language conforming with state law.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'd make a motion to approve it, adopt this language, and
Second.
codify it into our subdivision ordinance.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Miller and a second by Commissioner Tuggle. Any questions? Discussion? See none. Roll call, please, Ms. Middleton.
Vice Chairperson Tuggle,
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Yes.
Commission Member Miller,
Yes,
Chairperson Chauncey.
Yes. All right. Last item on the agenda is going to be discuss a resolution updating the regulations on how plats are submitted and reviewed to reflect the electronic submittal process and amends the language in the regulations from the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission to the East Ridge Planning Commission.
Yes, this is also another resolution that deals with changes in state law from Tennessee Code Annotated, Section 13.4.101 through 13.4.310, which talked about the submission of plats on those that had 5 or less lots on it, that it now has to go to RPA, which we've been doing anyway, but this just puts it within our subdivision regulations. A couple other things that the resolution does sort of as a cleanup is, ever since COVID hit, a lot of these submittals that have been going down to RPA and everything else, they require them to be digital now instead of paper. And in here, it says that they want to make, that they want to have that in our regulations, that all those submittals need to be done digitally. Not the final plat, but as you're going through the process, they want all that to be digital.
accommodate that, Chris? I mean, we can accommodate that
Yes.
here in our city?
Yes.
So, okay.
Another one was to change the name, because I believe in our subdivision regs, a lot of places it says Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Agency, and it really needs to say East Ridge Municipal Planning Commission. So that's another cleanup that is in here. And then it also, like I said, it talks about the applications for variances, and it lists the actual steps that you need to start going through to be able to do these variances. It just deleted what was there before and just cleaned up the language a little bit. And as I said, paper copies are no longer being accepted. And there's a few restrictions that, that goes with those lots for the RPA when they review them. In order to qualify for that administrative review from RPA, they have to be, the subdivision must front on existing public street, may not have any adverse topography, drainage, or soil, doesn't require the extension of public water or sewer lines, doesn't require a variance from the adopted subdivision regulations. And I keep going, there's a couple more. Must not contain 3 or more contiguous flag lots, and must not contain more than 5 or more new lots. So that's basically where the General Assembly is letting that go straight to RPA for approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Do I hear entertain a motion?
Motion to approve the amended language.
I just have a question to ask on this.
I got a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? I'll let you get it.
I'll second.
Okay. Got a
For
motion by Commissioner Tuggle and a second by Mr. Miller.
question I have is, concern that I had when I worked down in Florida, that cities had to obtain the approval of the county before the plat would be approved. Are we looking at giving up our home rule charter responsibilities and pushing that on to the county, and letting the county make those decisions now? Taking over our planning process per se,
On those small lots, yes.
on the small
Those small
lots?
plats, yes.
And that's
I'm
less,
not going to say it's compromising our home rule ability, but that is
Less
what the
than
state.
5?
Yes, 5 or less, yes.
5 or less, okay. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just because of state law, but this is
Right.
one of these state-issued mandates that are taking away that.
Our autonomy. Yeah.
Autonomy to be able to make those decisions and say, this is the way it's gonna be.
Right.
All right. Anything else?
Anything about it, but.
Right.
I
That's
just-
state law. We can just adopt
Yeah.
it or go to court.
Any other discussion? I see none. Roll call, Ms. Middleton.
Vice Chairperson Tuggle,
Yes.
Commission Member Cornelius,
Yes.
Commission Member Miller,
Yes,
Chairperson Chauncey.
Yes. That is everything on our agenda tonight. I will move to adjourn. Thank you all for coming.
Oh, no, it's fine. The first reason I squeaked was to try and get